Morning, everyone. I figured I should probably deliver my usual daily update, so here we go. Yesterday, I talked about the censorship on Twitter. I want to give you a really clear understanding of the level of censorship that we're dealing with, because this infects every country, infects every country, okay? Greg Jarrett says, let me get this straight. The New York Times can post to Twitter and Facebook its story on Trump's taxes based on unnamed sources and documents it won't produce, but the New York Post cannot post its story on Biden based on documents it's produced. Confused? Don't be. It's political censorship, yes, and we live in the era of misinformation, okay, on purpose. And it's very, very interesting. Yesterday, also, Twitter had a massive outage. So Amazing Polly was removed from YouTube yesterday, and there's a big purge of Q, like people, accounts that follow Q and do conspiracy connections and blah, 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 blah. I figured I was pretty safe if Amazing Polly was still on YouTube. And well, if I'm the most controversial thing on YouTube, yeah, wow, strange, right? Like, that's an interesting place to be. So I've got other places that I post this, but that's weird, right? So if you're not following me on Twitch or on NewTube.app or on any of the other Periscope or even just a podcast app, I put the podcast out. I don't rely on anybody else to put the podcast out. It's totally self-served. So, well, I guess you have to go through an Apple or some RSS reader, RSS feed for the podcast, but you could still get this if you subscribe to the podcast. So, but yesterday, Twitter went down at around 5 o'clock, and I thought I had been suspended from Twitter. And I was messaging people and saying, is Twitter behaving weirdly for you, or is it just me? Because it was multiple accounts that were affected, but who knows, right? Regardless, doesn't matter. So it wasn't just me, it was a whole bunch of people. And well, I think it has more to do with the censorship than anything else. All right, getting into the Canadian news. This is interesting. This is Charlie Mitchell, and Charlie Mitchell he does the Canadian beat for the UK's Independent. And it says, the Justin Trudeau brand looks broken beyond repair. What went wrong for the bright young thing? One of the quotes is, it says, I've met a lot of Trudeau's countrymen. Those who constitute his core base still adore him. The majority of Canadians, it seems to me, just feel let down. Well, yeah, there's let down and there's like raging angry, right? Somewhere between there. But it's interesting because reading through this is basically like reading through what I've been telling you guys for the last little while. So it's more accurate than our Sunshine and Rainbows news, right? Moving into our Sunshine and Rainbows news, the actual news of the day is that the Liberals are still filibustering. They're still filibustering. They don't want to talk about we. The we documents are redacted, and this whole thing is specifically about unredacting documents. Now, the Liberals are trying to make it about revealing private information for private citizens, but this has to do with we and kickbacks to family members, cronyism, and you know, this is a big deal and deserves answers, right? If you were if you were running a country, say, you would have to answer to this. Or maybe not if you can get your party on board. Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he says, today the Finance Committee will resume debate on my point of privilege to remove government blackouts of we scandal documents after chair suspended last week's meeting. And so this was October 15th. Today is the 16th. And well, that didn't happen. I mean, yesterday they started the meeting, but it was filibustered all day, and we'll get through that. Brian Lilly says 9 different properties in Kenya were transferred from We Charity to a private company earlier this year, and this was a July 16th tweet. As I expose the massive real estate holdings of We and their affiliate groups, we need to know who owns the company controlling this land. Read and retweet. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Maybe that's in the unredacted documents, right? Like if the documents came through, we'd understand who owns what and blah, 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 blah. Maybe not, right? But maybe it would answer some questions. Mr. Poilievre continues, he says, Liberals enter 9th hour of filibustering Finance Committee motion to unblack out we scandal documents. There must be some bombshells in those documents for them to go to these lengths. Yeah, that was 16 hours ago. Here's Brian Lilly again, 12 hours ago. When a party spends days trying to stop documents from being released, there is normally a reason. They don't want them released. Hard to argue with Mr. Poilievre here. And I agree with that too. Here's Pablo Rodriguez, and Pablo Rodriguez is the leader of the government, lieutenant to Quebec in the leader of the government in the House of Commons and the Quebec lieutenant. And he says opposition MPs, that's the Conservatives, at the Ethics Committee of our Commons are trying to obtain personal financial information of private citizens. This is an abuse of power. They should let the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner do his job. I think that the documents were requested in August, and people were like, yeah, we have to give those documents and blah, blah, blah. It's a minority government after all, and I think that probably this could trigger a fall of the government, but maybe not. Maybe these guys back down and say, you know, we don't really need those documents. Here's Mr. Polyev 13 hours ago. Liberals shut down hearings on unblacking out We scandal documents until tomorrow at 11 a.m. They must be hiding something. Yeah, I think so. Here's Charlie Angus, and he says, I'm calling on the Liberal members of the ethics to stop stonewalling production of documents on We scandal. Committee called for these documents last July. It was July, I thought it was August. Filibustering is wasting our time and interfering with the work of Parliament. This is the reason that I think that if they move this from the committees that they're currently trying to get these documents from to this ethics committee or this, what did Polyev call it yesterday? The anti-corruption committee, you lose. You lose. If you pull it out of this, you lose, because they're going to go on with the business of government and they are going to ignore your petty little committee, and because the only thing that matters is the confidence vote. Only thing that matters. And guess who backed him up, Charlie? Guess who backed him up, buddy? That was you. That was you. You let them do this, right? It continues, says Mr. Polyev, an hour ago, after promising to call a finance committee for 11 a.m. today, that's today, Liberal chair reneged and canceled today's hearing. Trudeau is prepared to grind committees to a halt to keep the truth from coming out in the We scandal. I wonder what they could possibly be hiding. And really, man, like, what could be in there that you could go to these lengths, right? Is it just some procedural stuff? Emails about yoga and grandkids? Brian Lilly says, meanwhile, the Ethics Committee, Liberal MPs, is doing his best filibuster to stop the release of documents on who got paid in the Trudeau family by the folks at or around We. Must be something awful for the Liberals to do this at two committees, right? So they're blocking this everywhere. Here's the article on it. I was gonna read through it, but it's basically the same stuff we've talked about before. It's just a little bit more detail, right? Like, it's Charlie Angus asking, and really the vote that matters is the confidence. And if he's not willing to produce these documents, how can the government, this minority government, continue to say that there's confidence in this leadership? Navdeep Bain says, today's announcement, this is moving from We documents to just procedural stuff. This is a regular kind of sounding announcement, but it's a terrible idea. Navdeep Bain says, today's announcement is great news for Canada's economy and environment. We're investing $20 million in a new cutting-edge technology from terrestrial energy to help deliver cleaner energy sources and build on Canada's global leadership in nuclear energy. And they did this in Australia, SMRs, small modular reactors, right? And well, it costs a lot of money, 16,000 Australian dollars, 16,304 per kilowatt for SMRs. Yikes, right? Is that a good idea? Should we be investing in that? Here's 7 reasons why small modular nuclear reactors are a bad idea for Australia. And it goes through, cost and safety problems because it's a nuclear reactor on wheels. See? Where's the picture? Yeah, see? There you go. Modular reactor. Oh, well, there you go. And it produces the same byproducts, so you could create, potentially weaponize it. Oh, yay. Let's please have those up and down the 401. No, right? No. And the idea is, you can rapidly deploy them to remote locations and blah, 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 anywhere a flatbed can go, I guess. But while that may be a good idea for maybe solving some problems, is this really going to solve our issues? Really? Is there any use case across the world that has succeeded in adopting these things, right? Is there any hurdles they went through that we could avoid, through looking at the publicly available data? Anybody asked anybody this? No, they haven't. This was interesting. Bernier is running in York Centre, and the Liberals are filibustering and being Liberals. All of that said, Toronto, I don't think Mr. Bernier is going to win Toronto. Mr. Bernier doesn't think Mr. Bernier is going to win Toronto, right? And he said that on his one of the interviews that I've linked already. He said, another reason for this is to get our message out and to continue to build the party, etc. Need a constitution. But this is... The Post-Millennial says, exclusive York Centre Liberal candidate says Israel is racist and delegitimizes non-Jews. This is, interesting. So she's herself Jewish. I'll let you read this. I just thought this was interesting. It certainly gives a different kind of flavor to the York Centre race, which is the one that Mr. Bernier is running. So I take for that what it is. Just very interesting. I thought, man, that changes that a little bit, doesn't it? Moving into Ontario and provincial politics a little bit. Rocco Galati is sharing this. Here's Ottawa, CTV News Ottawa is sharing this. Health officials raise disinformation concerns with MPP Randy Hillier. This is just a hit piece, but the reason that I'm showing you this hit piece is the public health here is concerned that Mr. Hillier is Well, here, a browse of Hillier's Twitter feed shows posts indicating public health officials are guilty of crimes against humanity based on restrictions put in place for COVID-19, and one that called Dr. Tedros Adhanom, I've never said his last name right, so I'm just going to leave it, Dr. Tedros, with the World Health Organization, a liar and a criminal. Okay, it says Hillier, who sits as an independent for his writing, was kicked out of the PCs, blah, blah, blah. He says he's against mandatory masks and has shared a number of questionable posts on social media about the pandemic, including some that are completely false conspiracy theories. According to who? According to troubling to who? Or what did they say? Against masks and questionable posts on social media. Questionable posts on social media. Who gets to decide what's questionable post on social media? CTV, right? And who gets to decide what are completely false conspiracy theories? Because at one point, the WHO said a whole bunch of things were conspiracy theories, and people were trying to crack down on that, but then they reversed their statement like 2 days later. This whole thing is just a hit piece. But do you want these people, and more these people being the public health people, coming up with the health protocols for health clubs, right? Like, it says CP24 is reporting Ontario fitness industry awaits outcome of COVID-19 protocols review. At this point in time, are you willing to play the games of these people? Like, are you willing to play the games of the people who are unwilling to look at the case numbers versus death numbers, who are unwilling to look at, well, it's not just me that says there's a lot of panic instead of rational thought going into the reporting in this and into the public response to this. If you haven't seen my last video about COVID-19 and the Guelph response, please go watch that. There's some information in there, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it here too. A little bit of crossover because that was supposed to be a Guelph video, but whatever. It was long enough. I thought, yeah, I'll put it out. But here is Corey Morgan. He says, pure panic porn from the state broadcaster. Hospitalizations hit a new high. Oh no! What about the children, right? It's 14 people in the ICU out of 4.4 million people. You fear-mongering beeps, right? What we need is crib boards to keep all the health professionals on standby busy. Here is, and basically it's like the news is trying to scare you, but if you think about it in terms of the total population, the number of infected is very low, right? Like, we're not talking about something that's ripping through a whole lot of population. And the fear-mongering of, just 2 more weeks, just 2 more weeks, just 2 more weeks. We're like 6 weeks into the school. Like 6 weeks into school at this point in time. Nothing's happened. When is the impending doom, right? The impending doom just coming up. Just keep your business closed and stay afraid, right? Come on, right? Here's Kyle Lamb, and he says, I'm writing a deeper dive, but this is the shocking number that should be headline news. 97.9% decrease of confirmed flu cases to WHO FluNet and GISRS from week 15 through 40 from 2019 to 2020. Last year, 119,737 confirmed flu cases, that's 9.32% positive. This year, 2,457.18% positive. So we beat the flu. The flu doesn't exist. We've fixed the flu, but unfortunately now we have COVID-19 and everybody has to stay in their homes. This is a very concerning thing. Here is the Netherlands. I showed this on the other show too, the last program. I'm going to show this again now because I think it's really important because it's really important. Like, yeah, hold on.
We now know that it is a normal flu virus, and the normal flu virus isn't on list A. So we are also starting a lawsuit to the state of the Netherlands to bring this in with a large group of doctors and a really large group of nurses also, because we have contact with 87,000 nurses that do not want the vaccine that is being prepared for us. I want to state, if there is no pandemic, I am wondering why our kids are in schools with masks. There's absolute constitutional rights, and they cannot be infringed or infringed for any medical.
Right. All of that is very, very important. And here's the whole thing as well. The whole meeting, the whole press conference, everything. Very interesting. I think it's worthwhile.
Data about ill people. It is not as terrible as the media are telling you. It's we have contact with all those doctors in the Netherlands, hundreds of doctors, and we are keeping records, and the hospitals are not full. The people are not ill. They are tested, but the tests that are provided don't work as they should. So we have to get this out to the public, and we have to also be there for our colleagues to have an open debate again about this. Thank you very much.
So they're saying doctors, nurses, people are coming forward regularly. Professional people having professional press conferences saying, hey, this isn't happening. Like, we shouldn't be responding like this. This is creating a much bigger problem for something that is COVID-19 is really just a flu, said that doctor, right? This one. Right? And yet, and I brought this up in my last show, but this is egregious and unbelievable. Starting today, residents of long-term care homes in Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa, where COVID-19 cases are surging, won't be allowed to go out for social or personal reasons. They don't have a parole board they can appeal to. They don't have somebody bail they could pay to get out. Somebody mentioned in my other comments they could just stop paying their rent. Sure, that's a great idea. Stop paying your rent and get kicked out, because oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. The people in care homes didn't do anything wrong, and yet they're being locked down, right? They have absolutely no recourse, no ability to fight this. This is from the provincial government, right? This is a violation of their rights, in my opinion, and I would fight it very, very strongly if I could. And somebody said, just go and start a lawsuit. It's not, you could do that. Yeah, it would consume me probably, right? Like, I would need to learn how to do it, and I would look at how to do it, and I would read up on what I would need to do, and there would be books over there, and it would consume me. It's like getting a video game that you are interested in and you can't put down, right? Like, I'm worried that's what would happen. Maybe we'll see, and maybe it would not interest me at all. I don't know, but fundamentally, I would want somebody with a chance of winning, right? Like, if I go in there, I don't know, man. No, yes, I've never done this before. I'll give it a go, right? No, I think that's folly, but I think that having these people locked in old age homes just because cases are surging with no other metrics to back it up, wrong-headed and stupid. Here's Global Edmonton. We continue to be concerned by the continuing increase in case numbers. City of Edmonton announces new measures to address COVID-19 cases. This is 15 hours ago, right? I'm not going to go through what new measures they're introducing, but again, this is happening. It doesn't seem to matter how many cases there are. It doesn't seem to matter what's happening in other places in Canada. Everybody's marching towards masks are mandatory. Masks work because they stop infections rising. Oh, infections are rising. Now we have to go back to lockdown. It doesn't make any sense. They're lying. Here's Laurie Goldstein. He says, my Friday Sun column, dictatorship seized control of UN Human Rights Council by electing China, Russia, Cuba, Pakistan, and Uzbekistan to 3-year terms on the UNHCR starting January 1st. 60% of the UN human rights body is now run by dictatorships. Yay! Don't you just like being run by dictatorships at the UN? Yay, the human rights, right? Like, those are very important. Let's listen to the dictators. They know human rights, right? How about those Uyghurs, China? Jason Kenny's talking about the Alaska-Alberta Rail. He says, great to see Fort Mac's Indigenous community ready to engage on the potential construction of the Alaska-Alberta Railway. We're still in the very, very early stages, but it's clear that A2A could benefit Alberta's First Nation communities along the route. I think C69 could be used to smash this, just stop it in its tracks. I hope not, but it seems to me that they would let it get so far down the garden path before just crushing it. Anthony Furey's reporting the Alberta government has just announced plans to repeal their controversial Bill 10, which lets some ministerial orders sidestep the legislative process in the name of the pandemic. It's rare and welcome news to see the government relinquish newfound powers. Yeah, that's not usual, so I thought I'd include that for sure. Here's Doug Ford, and this concerns me. It says, for too long, our newer and young educators have been left behind. Instead of seniority, teachers in Ontario will be hired based on merit and the unique needs of schools and communities in the province. It's time for change. Students deserve better. This is an awful idea, and I think if what they're doing, if the process of this is repealing Regulation 274, which prioritized, this is what they're doing. Bill 274, Regulation 274 used seniority to guide the hiring of teachers, right? And so, like, if you were hired on the 11th and I was hired on the 12th, you would get whatever position because you're a more experienced teacher, right? Seniority is king. And all things are always equal, right? If all things are equal and The idea is they wouldn't have hired you if all things weren't equal, right? But they're repealing that, and now what they're trying to do is hire for diversity, right? But the Ontario government isn't framing it that way. It says, here's Lecce, I don't know. It says the best teacher for the job, that's what students deserve, parents expect, and what our government will deliver. So in this, he's talking about, well, here, I'll let him
deserves
talk.
the very best educator at the front of their class. Now, we've got amazing educators in this province, but I believe we have an opportunity to create a new culture of educators where we hire exclusively based on their merit, on their qualification, and yes, their diversity, not on their seniority in a union. Now, I say this...
Diversity, what does that even mean? Well, here's the Upper Grand District School Board talking about exactly that.
Read at the beginning of the presentation that we are looking at our hiring practices. And when we say that, what we mean is specifically the questions that we ask and the answers that we receive. So as a white woman, I may not be in an interview situation asking the right questions to determine racism, to determine oppression, and I need to have some specific training on that and on the answers that I should be looking for. So that is one of the first things that we will be doing as we move into September 2020. Your second part of the question, I believe, was about mentors for our young students, or not just our young students, but all of our students. Students need they need to see faces like theirs in front of them. We agree with that. Again, Regulation 274 does not allow for that right now, but we need to start in kindergarten, and we need to start mentoring our students in kindergarten to see themselves as future leaders, be that a teacher, be that a principal, a superintendent, a director, a nurse, a doctor, whatever they want to be. We need to start modeling for them and showing them that those possibilities are there for them. And that will be part of the training that we will receive. And we are looking at having outside agencies support us in that training, and people that don't look like me or don't look like you.
I wonder who they look like. I think that it's wrong-headed to hire based on diversity. I think that hiring the best teacher, the most effective teacher, the teacher that can effectively teach the students in their classroom. And since when are we prioritizing diversity? Why is the conservative provincial government hiring people based on diversity qualifications? What possible? How do I get diversity qualifications? Can I achieve them? Can I get them? Oh, sorry, sir, you're too white. Oh, you know what? No, don't worry about it. My last name's Perolovis, and I'm a first-generation Canadian, so I'm actually, a person of color. Don't worry. See, I tick that box too. Right? Is that how this works now? It makes me so frustrated to have so many supposedly intelligent people, one, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all of these people here argue so passionately to go back to judging people based on their skin color. How stupid from our education system. How stupid from our government. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I'm frustrated about that. This is funny and stupid. I don't like John Tory. He owns Rogers and he's the mayor of Toronto. Like, he's part of the family trust that owns Rogers. And I'm not saying like they suggest things to Rogers. They own Rogers, okay? He owns Rogers and he's the mayor of Toronto. That's a conflict. But I don't like it when politicians, he's a politician more than owning Rogers. He's more known for the politician part. But he gets on TikTok and says, watch Mayor John Tory's on TikTok sharing COVID-19 safety tips. I won't subject you to that. But can you just imagine how awkward that is? Like, I die a little bit when I see the videos of the moms trying to like embarrass the daughters. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Don't do that, mom. And which politician, which advisor tells you, yes, sir, do the TikTok video. That's going to get votes. Like, which one? Fire him or her or them. Brett Wilson says, for those voting Liberal Party, judge this. Under Kathleen McKenna, the Federal Infrastructure Bank, or whatever the F it is, has paid more in severance than salary. What gives? What gives? Yeah, I mean, good question. Well timed too, Brett. Here's the story on it. 2 days ago, Canada Infrastructure Bank paid $3.8 million for terminations amid leadership shakeup. How do you work there and then get fired from there? Waterloo Regional Police investigations underway. Reports of shots fired in Kitchener and Waterloo. No injuries reported, and police are trying to determine if they're connected. In Waterloo, speckled Adler Street is closed at Laurelwood Drive and Wild Ginger Avenue. I'm not sure if this is two separate shootings or if it's like it just bridges Kitchener-Waterloo. It doesn't matter. It's not usual for there to be like random gun violence in Kitchener. The Supreme Court declines to hear the appeal in the Aga Khan Trudeau lobbying case. Nothing's going to happen. I said in my other one, the earlier show today, I said you're not, if you fight the Canadian government or in Canadian courts, you're probably not going to win because the courts see things the way these teachers see things, the same way the Trudeau Liberals see things, the same way apparently the Ford Conservatives see things. They all see it the same way. And that's, following this woke ideology, following the, Trudeau could do no wrong, following, like, you can't fight that, right? Or if you are going to fight that, you need to fight it the way Trump has fought it. And I'm not seeing leadership like that in Canada anywhere, not anywhere, right? Like, especially Aaron O'Toole. He's not Trumpian in that he's not playing chess. He's playing checkers. He's following Trump. He's restarted his in-person touring after Trump did, right? And Trump got the virus a couple of days after. Whatever. Trump, their timelines are way off. But I'm not seeing that kind of leadership anywhere in Canada. Anywhere. Even anywhere. There's no entity that's putting forward a coherent pushback to all of this. At least in the United States, Trump, you've got somebody who's identifying critical race theory, just as a simple one. That's obviously a racist theory. Obviously, if you agree to go to critical race theory training, you are saying, yes, I am racist and I need this training. No, nope. The whole thing's bunk. It's bunk. It's racism repackaged as training, and it's meant to shame people. And it's no, seriously, absolutely not. And I don't see anybody even pushing back against that. Not across any level of government. Most of them are kowtowing to it and saying, "Oh, we've gotta definitely listen to that." It's garbage. It's trash. And when you reduce people down to their skin color, you're missing out on a whole lot, right? And the fact that it took all of 5 seconds to embrace this. Judging people by their skin color across the board and seeing it as some progressive mecca, right? Like the pinnacle of the progressive lens is to look at everything through your race. Yay, great, good job. If you really wanted to look, let's have a look at history. We could compare, right? And really, let's have the conversation if you want to have the conversation. But it is absolutely abhorrent that we've taken so many steps back. Right? Because we're not winning. Nobody's winning in this situation. Here's the last story for this morning. Watch Canadian press reporter accuse Harper for not improving Access to Information Act, basically blaming the redactions found in the WeScandal documents on the Conservatives. Polyev walks in and just kind of destroys them because he says, you're welcome to your opinion, but you're not welcome to your own facts. Actually, this is what the Conservatives did. The press, the courts, the school systems, the provincial, municipal, and federal governments are all marching to this drum. And there are very few people who are articulating anything outside of it. And those people who are I won't go as far as to say targeted, but probably they're certainly not as tolerated as they were. There was a point in Canadian history where you could have a very engaging conversation, and one person being a liberal and one person being a conservative, and you wouldn't leave wanting the other person to meet their end shortly, right? Like you wouldn't get into a fighting match, you wouldn't get into Antifa or anything like that. You could have a real disagreement on policy and walk away still having no problems, right? And now we're not in that situation. If you think that perhaps the borders should be closed, then you're an abhorrent Nazi. If you think that people should be judged on the things that they do and the things they accomplish and who they are, the content of their character instead of the color of their skin, how dare you, sir? Right? And so that's where we are. And how do you meaningfully push back against a culture that is pushing so hard? And I don't think that you necessarily need the majority of the culture to be pushing as hard to have it seem like that. right? Like the amount of people wearing a mask is showing how many people are compliant and just don't want to fight. How many girlfriends convince their boyfriends to not, or husbands not to wear a mask because they just don't want to deal with feeling embarrassed, right? I've gone through it, right? And sorry, nope. And my kids too, right? They don't wear a mask, and I tell them they're allowed to wear a mask if they want to wear a mask, and they don't think about it. Nope, not happening. And so, how do you push back against a culture that's so willing to signal compliance, right? They will cut off their oxygen supply to signal their compliance with the order of the mask, and with very flimsy evidence that it works, right? It's an incredible time to be alive. We're living through some very interesting times. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful